once again, it is so great to have you with us once again here on this edition of Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. It is doggone expensive to go to college. I'm just going to put that out there. I've got 2 kids in college right now. My wife and I, we both work. And honestly, I don't know how we're doing it. I really don't. And as we get going here today, I want you to take a look at something. Going to a 4-year public college back in 1963, look at that number. Tuition would run you about $243. Now, play that out about 60 years. Make adjustments for inflation, and that number then balloons to more than $2,300. That's an increase of 75% every decade. Now, what about a private nonprofit 4-year college? Well, between 1985 and 2020, those costs increased 180%. That's all adjusted for inflation. So essentially, the cost of attending a private college or university has more than doubled in the last 30 years. Those are just some of the stats and statistics that are shared in a book that just came out last fall, and it's called Out of Pocket: What Parents and Counselors Need to Know About College Financial Aid and the New FAFSA. We're going to get into that here in just a bit. I'll tell you what, this book is an invaluable guide that equips families with the necessary tools to effectively manage college expenses and support their students' educational aspirations. And it's co-authored by our guest today. He is a Toledo guy, Gregory Guzman. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jeff. Excited to be here.
Well, that's fantastic that we've got this book to talk about, because I have had numerous college administrators sitting, like yourself, sitting in the seat, and I've asked them the same question over and over again, and it is a head scratcher for a lot of people. Why is college so expensive?
Well, I don't think the segment will be long enough for that. So, I mean, there's so many different facets of the reason why college costs so much. And you could start off from increased costs from facilities, correct? I mean, a lot of the prices associated with things from books to taking care of the facilities to the very cost of heat. And then, of course, we have the main component, the instructors, right? They could be working in the private field. And so those costs to employ them as instructors increases on a regular basis. Tie on to that, they need benefits, they need retirement, all those different things that are associated. But there's also a piece people don't think about, and that's the federal financial aid piece. That actually is tied to the cost of higher education. And in some cases, in some studies, you may see that causes an increase in what it costs to attend college.
You are the vice president of Hondros College of Nursing, multiple campuses. I want you to I want to give you an opportunity to kind of define a little bit about the college for people who don't know, because me, old school guy, I before we got going here today, I said, Hondros College of Business, real estate? There have been some changes over the years, but kind of define it for us here today.
Sure. Let me start off with Hondros College of Nursing. We're part of American Public Education Incorporated, and it includes a whole array of schools. So we have sister institutions: American Public University, American Military University, Rasmussen University, and of course us at Hondros College of Nursing. Now, people in our area, right, we know Hondros. Wonderful family here in the state of Ohio who've done so much good for our communities, John and Linda Hondros. We all know them from the real estate world and the business college. Well, they began the Hondros College of Nursing endeavor some years ago and decided, this isn't really the lane we want to be in. So American Public Education purchased Hondros College of Nursing, and that's where we're at today. So Hondros, believe this or not, I get this from a lot of friends, especially Jeff. Well, where are you located? And of course I explained to them we're located in Maumee over in Arrowhead Park, and we have campuses in Detroit and Cleveland, Akron, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. So we're cored right here in the middle. But here in the state of Ohio, we are actually the largest provider of pre-licensure nursing education in the entire state.
No kidding.
The next closest institution to that number is Kent State University.
Wow.
And that's by 1,400 less students.
And each one of those campuses, all specializing in nursing, bringing your total numbers, you said, to about 30?
So we have about 3,800 students
Okay.
currently. And you're right, we specialize. All we have are nursing education programs. So let's start off the Diploma of Practical Nursing, which does lead to certification. And then we have the Associate of Applied Science degree in nursing, which also leads to the RN, registered nurse testing and time for, or excuse me, certification. And then we have medical assistant, which is new as well.
I want to get into the book here in just a second, but I also want to talk about your experience, just for people who don't already know you as this Central Catholic graduate, as well as BGSU and the University of Toledo. The resume, 7 pages, and more upon request. But the experience level, as you looked, and one of the things that really struck me, Greg, was looking at your career. And as you went from place to place, Lourdes University, worked with the Toledo Catholic Diocese, obviously with Hondros and BGSU at a time. All of these institutions, as we know them in 2025 terms, very successful, doing very well, have expanded, the growth, unbelievable. You were part of getting them to that point. Is that fair?
With a whole team of others, but yes, it absolutely was. The thing that...
But what did you recognize in those institutions early on that said growth is needed, growth is possible?
Northwest Ohio. As you said, I'm a Toledo guy. I love Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan. It's an incredible place to raise a family and to make a lifetime of. And our educational facilities, in the exact same vein. I mean, we've got some exceptional institutions here, from the University of Toledo to Owens Community College to Davis College to Hondros College of Nursing. You name it. We've just got some wonderful treasures here, and they're places that I want to work and expand. I love sharing what we have here in Northwest Ohio educationally. I mean, I would put our education, or the degrees we offer, the level of research that we do, against anyone in the entire country. We are an incredible, as we've been called, a gold mine.
Yeah.
And it is. And I love just helping our local institutions advance and do better.
And within a 50-mile radius is what I'm hearing from you and seeing from your resume as well. The book, how did it come about?
How did it come about? I also have children myself, and they're older now. They're in college. In fact, my son just graduated in last December from the University of Dayton, and my daughter is engaged and heading off in that direction. Honestly, I needed something to keep my hands and keep my mind busy. That was a large piece of it. But the second piece was, I've done so many financial aid nights in our area. There isn't a high school in this entire region that I haven't done a financial aid night in. And every year get the same questions. But this particular year, in 23-24, going into 24-25, the federal government revamped the entire free application for federal student aid process.
FAFSA.
That includes, correct, the FAFSA. So that includes revamping the computer systems, which were outdated. That includes revamping the methodology. That includes redoing nearly everything associated with federal financial aid that's been in place for the past 50 years.
Right.
It didn't go well.
Right.
It was called a fiasco by many, for different reasons, right? Technology, staffing, politics, you name it. And a lot of families and friends and colleges and universities were contacting me and saying, we have to do something. We have to get information to the high school guidance counselors so they understand what this new process entails, all the different elements, what's included in it, and keep it in a perspective that they would understand, and that parents in particular would understand.
I want to dive into some of the particulars that you get into, and once again talking about this FAFSA fiasco, which one of them is an acronym, the other one is not. It's just a definition of what was going on. We're going to continue our conversation here with Gregory Guzman right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back once again here on Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. Gregory Guzman, he is the Vice President of Hondros College of Nursing here in the Toledo area and expanding out wide as well as far as the region is concerned. The book, which just came out in the fall, Out of Pocket, what parents and counselors need to know about college financial aid and the new FAFSA. I wanted to dive in a little bit because there was something that kind of grabbed my attention. You and I were having a phone conversation this past week, and you said to me, because of those, you think about this little hiccup, right, for the government to get kids the financial aid they need, and you said there were kids, you know of cases where there are kids and parents who decided, hands up, throw them up, we're not doing college because of the problems with FAFSA.
That's not only local. According to Brookings Institute, upwards of 9% of students who just graduated from high school
and had their sights set,
ready to go.
Yeah.
They knew where they wanted to go, knew what they wanted to do, decided, I'm not going. And it's because, in large part, at least they cited the reason, because they couldn't even file their FAFSA.
Yeah.
So what that means is they couldn't tell how much funding they would or would not be entitled to or have access to from the federal government and state governments as well, because it trickles down. The FAFSA is the primary form that really drives decisions from state agencies, local agencies, scholarship organizations, foundations, all of it. It's all tied to that. But the FAFSA delays, it was supposed to be out in October, Jeff, October 1st. It actually didn't come out and with a full release until March. I mean, it was that far behind. And even then, the systems behind the scenes that run the calculations and determine what's called a student aid index, used to be called the expected family contribution, EFC, they didn't work right.
Sitting here today, is it good?
It's better than it was.
Yeah.
It's better than it was. There's still major issues. For example, something all of us at the colleges and universities are dealing with, or something called the National Student Loan Data System Post-Secondary Screening Eligibility. And so what that means is, it is, it's a secondary system of the Department of Ed and says, hey, Jeff went to school, he has borrowed this amount of money and he's received this amount of money in grants. So don't give him any more money. Well, that system didn't work and still doesn't fully work. So we've got students that were issuing, well, we have students at the colleges that we're issuing aid to, and now we are just finding out, oh, they weren't eligible for it. So now we have to go back to them because the Department of Education couldn't get the system to work and say, oops, you weren't entitled to that money. Pay it back.
One of the things that you and your co-authors brought up in this book is you said a lot of a student's success in college is predicated not on academic prowess, but on the ability to pay.
Sure. Lots of students have the ability to go to college. That's a tier. There's another tier above them who are academically elite, very strong students. However, the determining factor for them to go to school isn't whether or not they have the academic intellect to do it, but instead, can they afford it? Can they afford to go to that institution? As you started the segment off by saying, costs are rising. So these students need to figure out how and if they can pay. You see a lot of students even stretching out college now. I mean, there's one study that indicates students aren't finishing within 6 years of a 4-year program.
But let me ask you from this perspective, because I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about, they kind of equated it to watching video of the opening weekend on a campus, seeing the flooded sidewalks with students going back and forth to class. And they said, imagine removing their heads and putting dollar signs, because essentially that's what all of them are to the schools. Do you see it like that?
I don't.
Okay.
Because I've, again.
So not fair.
Not fair. That's not an accurate statement. All of us that do work at colleges and universities, we care tremendously about those students that come to us, regardless of whether they're 18 years old or 81 years old. And yes, students are that old as well.
Right.
I mean, we treat them like their family. We really do everything that we can in our power, not only to see them enter into school, but more importantly, get through, persist all the way through. Persistence rates, retention rates, those are troubling numbers right now, and it has less, in my opinion, to do with the colleges and universities and more to do with world environment, working life, everything associated around, those external factors that influence whether or not a student will persist.
Yeah, and as you continue to look through this and your co-authors, what kind of things did you say, we need to make sure that A, B, and C are absolute front of mind for parents and students?
Well, the first thing we did was we talked through this because we could have written this book at a different level, and it would have been geared towards your college counselors or perhaps those in the aid industry, those who assist students getting into college. We didn't want to do that. The purpose of this book was to address questions that parents, families, students, and high school guidance counselors have. Keep in mind, high school guidance counselors are not experts in federal financial aid. They know the basics. So that's where we started, the foundational basics of understanding the new terminology, the new calculations, and the new determinants of aid.
Is this to show people that this can work for you? You can get financial aid?
Absolutely.
Because people get shut out based on income levels.
Well, so there are different pieces of federal financial aid, correct? Student loans. Student loans everyone has access to. And in order to get that access, you have to file a FAFSA. And many colleges and universities, in order to qualify or even be considered for their institutional aid, you do have to complete the FAFSA because that's the foundation. It gives us the information we need to say, hey, this individual needs assistance because we know more about the family, know more about the student, and we can help more in that capacity.
You've teed up our next segment, and we want to talk more about the student loan and situation that exists in the country right now and calling on those loans. We're going to finish up here on Leading Edge right after this. Come back. Over the last several weeks, whether you're watching us here on WTOL 11, maybe watching one of the news programs that you get on your cell phone, who knows, but been talking a lot about student loan debt repayment. And Dr. Guzman, I wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit because obviously it's kind of like Vegas saying the house is calling on the bet and you got to pay up. How do you see this playing out? And was it always something that people should have thought, you know, this is going to come to roost at some point?
Well, I think we start off by looking at how we got here in the first place, right? So federal student loans, they really began in the late 1950s, 1958. President Eisenhower put in place the National Defense Student Loan Program because we needed individuals in particular strategic areas to go to college because of Sputnik. Fast forward to the 90s, creation of the federal Stafford Student Loan Program. Wonderful endeavor. We want to see more individuals go to college. Banks are involved lending out the money with the guarantee of the federal government. It then evolves in the late 90s, the 2000s, and then becomes the William D. Ford Direct Student Loan Program, the program we know today, where the money is lent by the federal government using formulas, of course, and statutory limits on each of the different types of loans that exist. But what is it that got us here into this tremendous situation that we're in? In 2000, there were $380 billion outstanding in student loans. In 2022, there were $1.6 trillion in student loans.
Yeah.
So why the surge? What was the impetus behind this? A lot of this comes back to federal policy. So let's talk about federal policy. What does the government want to achieve? In 1958, we knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to compete against the Russians, Sputnik, and make sure those STEM programs were enhanced here in our country, and we stayed ahead of the rest of the world. Fast forward into the 2000s. Federal policy then says, we want to make college available to we want everyone to go to college. We want to go ahead and give out federal student loans to any and everyone that wants to go to college. So whether they want to, if it's a part-time individual, an individual who might be considered risky for college, whatever the case may be, that's what spurred all of this, that federal policy. The problem is that goal, which is noble and absolutely wonderful, really encouraged a lot of individuals to go to college. We wanted to open up access. So open enrollment colleges, we wanted to allow any and everyone to go. Well, that's in contrast to a different goal, which is outcomes. Because if you open the door for absolutely any and everyone to go to college, well, that means your outcomes will change. And in fact, they'll fall. So of that group, right, so now everyone can go to college, you see retention rates start to fall. Because some people, it just wasn't a good fit. And so that's how that number rose so quickly.
But when you look at the issue that exists today and the fact that they're now saying debt repayment, you threw me a number when we were in the commercial break as far as what we're looking at as far as those who are going to be on the tab.
Yeah, the government is estimating that in just a few months, we will have over 10 million students across the country default on their federal student loans.
And then what?
Well, that one's up for the politicians to figure out. I don't know what will happen, but I can tell you what will happen to those individuals who do default. They will have their wages garnished. They will have their Social Security tapped into. They will have a lot of different credit-bound measures applied to them. It's going to be rough. It's going to make a big impact, a negative impact, on the overall production and economic advancement of our entire country, if that is the case.
I asked you at the very beginning in our last 30 seconds, why is higher education so expensive? How do we sum that up here today?
Higher education is so expensive because of all the different factors associated with it. The piece I didn't mention
Can we get the price down in any way, shape, or form, or is this a mountain we just continue to climb? About 30 seconds.
My answer would be with a complete rehaul, revamp of the entire Department of Education. There was nothing wrong with the department per se as it existed. However, if we want to get to that different phase in our country where higher education is going down a different and more productive path, it has to be revamped. We have to take a look at the state subsidies and how they're contributing. We have to take a look at the federal government's policy.
10 seconds.
What is the intention? What is the purpose of getting everyone into college? Who should it be geared for?
Your insight's fantastic.
Thanks.
Gregory Guzman, good to see you.
Thank you
so much, sir. We'll be back right after this. Just enough time to say goodbye. Once again, thanks for being a part of this production. I look forward to seeing you each Monday through Friday at 5, 6, and 11 on WTOL 11. For all of us here at WTOL, I'm Jeff Smith. We'll see you next time on Leading Edge.